Welcome back to the Child Abuse Prevention Program. In the last video, we looked at a variety of on-site behavioral boundaries that you can establish to protect the students in your care. Now let's look at the rest of our recommended behavioral boundaries and talk about how you can enforce them to better protect youth. No entering students' hotel rooms or cabins during overnight travel without multiple adults being present. If school personnel need to speak with students, it should be done in a common area or with a staff member standing outside the door if another adult is unavailable. Limit medical exams and treatment by staff members to treatment of minor injuries or dispensing of approved and properly packaged medications. These treatments should be done with at least two adults present or in an area that is openly observable by other adults. More involved medical exams and treatment should be handled by an outside medical professional. This will limit child sexual abusers from using physically invasive examinations to disguise abuse. Prohibit staff from using alcohol, prescription drugs, or street drugs with students in your care. Child sexual abusers often use drugs and alcohol to lower their own inhibitions as well as the inhibitions of youth. Research has found that substances may be used to get youth to comply with sexual activity or to confuse them, making any disclosure less credible. Child sexual abusers may even use drugs to sedate other youth so they can focus on the abuse of a smaller number of victims. There are many cases where photos start out as innocent but progress to provocative and then indecent. When did it cross the line? We can't expect our youth to navigate the gray areas and slippery slope of the seductive grooming process. We need to set a boundary that is black and white so that everyone knows when it's being crossed. Our recommendation is that you restrict employees from taking photographs of students unless it's part of specifically approved and publicly announced school-sanctioned events, such as football games, school plays, or the end-of-year party. If that level of restriction seems unrealistic in your current culture, we recommend that you at least restrict employees from taking pictures of students unless there are two adults present. We understand that we live in a digital age, and photographs are an integral part of life for our kids and for many of our teachers in their teaching process. Unfortunately, the headlines clearly depict the danger of taking photos at school, and the stricter your policy is, the safer your students will be. You can provide additional protection for the students in your care by forbidding any device that has the capability of taking photos or videos in areas where there is an expectation of privacy, such as bathrooms, changing areas, and locker rooms. Establish a policy of no use of masks or blindfolds, and no discussion or practice of bondage, scatting, fetishes, or rituals. While we would like to think that a preclusion of this type of behavior would be obvious and not need to be documented, we've had multiple cases in recent years of sexual abuse that included blindfolding of students and bondage on school campuses right here in California. You may have infrequent exceptions to this boundary, such as the drama club enacting Romeo and Juliet, but these should be treated as the exception, not the rule, and staff, students, and parents should be notified when such an exception is approved by school administrators. Organized, multi-abuser, ritualistic abuse is much less common than single perpetrator abuse, especially in older kids. However, just the mention of it can serve as a deterrent. So we recommend you include it in your boundaries and be sure not to disregard bizarre comments by youth. Instead, follow up with a simple statement, "That's interesting, tell me more about that." As educators who care for the health, well-being, and future of the youth you serve, I'm sure it's disheartening to believe that sexual abuse is happening in our schools. As you can see, our efforts to educate you are more than just an academic or theoretical exercise. These headlines reflect stories of real kids being hurt, and it's up to all of us in the school community, especially those on campus with our youth, to participate in the discussion of protecting their sexual innocence. We hope you can join us for our next segment on off-site boundaries.